What was the reason why your friendship ended with someone? There was a position open in a different department. I encouraged her to apply and told her I would be applying as well. What was the worst that would happen? They tell us we don't qualify? Up until this point, we had been best friends for 3 years. Hung out with each other's families and saw each other almost every weekend. We found out at the same time. They emailed her letting her know she didn't meet the qualifications. I received a call shortly from HR after they sent her that email asking me which interview time worked best for me. My previous experience is what qualified me. She got mad at me that I got an interview and she didn't. Even contacted HR to ask why I got an interview and she didn't. She stopped talking to me the same day we were both contacted by HR for that position. She deleted me off all social media. I tried to talk to her about it, but she flat out said she no longer wanted to be friends. I didn't get the position, made being at work very awkward for the following 4 years I stayed. She was 35 and I was 34. Grown as adults, yet she was acting like a child. Turns out she's one of those that want the best for you as long as it's not better than her. I ended up promoting out of the department and she's still there, no called no showed to my wedding. We had been drifting apart already for a few years due to work and other life things getting in the way. But I made an effort to still invite him because he had been an important part of my life and helped me through some hard times. He never responded to the RSVP. I called him up to see if he had lost it, gave him the date, and told him I was excited to see him there and celebrate. Didn't show up, didn't even send a text or call with a reason, never even offered a single congratulations. He instead messaged me a few weeks after with the audacity to ask if I wanted to take some photos of his dad's car that he was trying to sell. When I confronted him and told him how disappointed I was, he gave some bullshit about how we'll always be friends no matter what. Then almost a year later he comes back into town and texts my brother, "Yo bro, let's hit up the bars tonight," and my brother is the ride or die. He has lit him up. Dude, you bailed on my brother's wedding, never offered an apology or reason. He now claims his car broke down, but no text was ever sent, and you've never made any effort to check in on our lives. We don't go out to bars anymore, we're both in serious relationships or married, and your friend you bailed on is about to have a kid. Fuck off. I'm super grateful for my brother for that. As for my former friend, fuck you. Actions speak louder than words. It was with a group. A bunch of guys I hung out with in high school and college, the quintessential role-playing crowd. They were fun in high school, but when I got into college, I noticed these guys were kind of, well, dysfunctional. As in, none of them could keep jobs, none of them could enjoy a relationship, and they all sat around and complained about how the entire world was unfair, how it didn't recognize their collective intellectual gifts. Meanwhile, I was not just busting my ass in school but working my way through to pay for it. And while my dating life wasn't the best, I managed to have a couple of long-term girlfriends. But if I was going out on a date, there was something wrong with me because I wasn't hanging out with them. But I'd still spend time with them. When one of them would lose a job, I'd lend him money. When another of them was arrested for DUI in a small town 150 miles away at 9 p.m. on a Sunday night, I drove down there to bail him out. And so on. Then my father had a sudden illness and went into a coma. Died a week later. During that time, only one of them called and came to the funeral. A week after the funeral, they just started calling me again as if nothing had happened. As in, "Hey, heard your dad died. Bummer. We're meeting at Dennis' apartment at 7. I dumped them, with the sole exception of the friend who showed up to the funeral. I remain friends with him to this day. But I remember reading something once: you are the sum total of the 5 people with whom you spend the most time. And, you know what? That's absolutely true. What they value, how they spend their time and energy, and everything else has a way of rubbing off onto you. So when I dumped them, I made it a point to cultivate better friends. Friends who gave a damn. Every once in a while, I still bump into one or the other of them. 2 of them never could hold down jobs and live with their aging parents. Good decision on my part. I got tired of feeling like I had to walk on eggshells around him. He always felt like he was above me and he treated me as a lesser person. He felt like he had the right to micromanage my life. He'd get upset if I did or say things that he didn't approve of, which basically just meant if it wasn't something he'd do or say. He set rules and expectations for everyone else, but we were all just supposed to be okay with it when he didn't follow them himself. Pretty much every time our friend group would hang out, he'd end up yelling at me for something or other. It got to the point where if I was supposed to hang out with him, I'd get panic attacks. I was always relieved whenever he'd end up not showing up, even though we'd waste an hour or two trying and failing to contact him. He even stalked all of my social media accounts. He would monitor them for any actively, and if I made any post or comment, he'd immediately be there making stupid, unfunny jokes at my expense. He even did that on an old Reddit account. He shared everything I did with everyone, which included things I wasn't comfortable sharing. I ended up nuking that account entirely. During one of his verbal tirades at me, I got tired of it and argued back. A few hours later, he apologized, which was the first time he'd ever done that in 7 years of friendship. I had had enough. I just decided to slowly withdraw myself from that friend group and stop talking to him. I've been forced to apologize to him even though he was in the wrong, so directly telling him that I no longer wanted to be friends would have just caused drawn-out drama that I didn't have the patience for at that point. I still talk to everyone else in that friend group. He burned down his house because his wife demanded a bigger house and collected the insurance money. Then, he grew a big head about having an expensive house in the better part of town. But I was proud of him, assuming he did it the right way. Then while we were hanging out, drinking of course, his wife wanted to know what we were talking about. So after a while he's too loaded to type and passes me the phone, too drunk to remember what he's been saying, and I see it. I did what he couldn't do, in half the time. I see it, control my rage, toss the phone back at him, and say I think you can handle that, chief. Then he spills his guts about burning the old house down, because he can't handle the guilt. A few weeks go by, and I refuse to bring it up because I know how I'll handle it. He asks my advice about buying a car he wants. But she doesn't want him to have it. I tell him to get it, because, fuck it, why not? She has a ghost app that lets her see everything on his phone and sees me encouraging him to get the car. She goes on Facebook and posts some shitty drawn-out victim-type sob story about losing all respect for a person I thought was a good man, but he encouraged my husband to go against me. So I called her up and let her know I never respected her, and I damn well don't respect a coward posing as a man that commits fraud by burning a house down for the insurance money. I love that asshole like a brother. Fuck 'em both.